decided that he wanted to learn how to skydive. And Bob indicated that he wasn't real thrilled about the idea because why jump out of a perfectly good airplane? But his son took the lessons and started skydiving, and he was so thrilled with it, enjoyed it so much that Bob hatched this plan that he would take skydiving lessons too. And so he did. He didn't tell his son. And then one weekend, when his son went to go on a skydive, Bob went along with him. Bob said, I'll come and, I want to come and be there with you. And then as the son was putting on his parachute, Bob walked into the hangar and grabbed the parachute and put it on. And his son said, "What are you doing, Dad?" And he said, "Well, hey, how hard can it be to jump out of a plane?" Anyways, they went up in the plane. They got up there. And the son went to the door, and Bob was standing up too, and the son went to the door, and he just fell back out of the plane in this most exuberant, glorious grin on his face. He just fell out of the plane. And Bob, who loved his son so much and just wanted to experience that same sense of joy and connection, leapt out of the plane so fast that he left his tennis shoes behind. And at that point, Bob stopped telling the story and looks at the camera and says, "I think that's what it must have been like for Jesus when he leapt out of heaven. He just wanted to be with us so much." So the last few weeks we've been looking pretty deeply at the story of the prodigal son, the lost son. And we've met the younger son who went off and did his own thing and came home and was welcomed home and forgiven and reinstated into the family. And we met the elder son who came home from a day in the fields, and there was a celebration going on, and it was, a celebration because his brother was back, and he got really angry, and he would not come in, and that the father went out to him and pleaded with him, but he wouldn't come in. And we talked about the two sons and how they represent kind of two kinds of ways that we can separate ourselves from God. And one is the way of self-discovery, right? One is the way of, I'm going to do my own thing, I'm going to go my own way, I'm going to figure out who I am, and then I'll have peace, and I'll be happy, and all will be okay in my life. And then the other side, the elder brother, was his way was the way of moral conformity. And that meant that he followed all the rules. As part of what he said to his father was, "I've done everything right. I've done everything you've asked me. I've followed all your instructions, and you've never given me a party, not even a goat to have to share with my friends." And this is the way of moral conformity, that way of, I'm going to try really, really hard, and I'm going to be very, very good, and I'm going to follow all the rules. And if I do that, then God will bless me, my life will be relatively easy, and at the end of my life I'll go to heaven, right? The problem was that we discovered that both sons were lost. Both sons were alienated from their father, and both sons were far from home. And we talked about that lostness a bit last week, and we got to the end of the parable, and it ends without us knowing what happens. And so what we were told at the end of the sermon last week is that there was a reason for that, and that there is a reason that we were actually intended to kind of be left with this vague sense of something's missing. And so today we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about what's missing. And so when Jesus was telling the parable, he was telling us about coming home. And he tells us three things that are needed for us to come home. The first thing is the initiating, pursuing love of the Father. Like the father who went out to both his sons. He went out to one with a kiss to welcome him home, He went out to one and pled with him to come home, but he welcomed them home. He wanted them to be in relationship to them, and he was willing to go out to them and do that. And, Jesus, like the life that Jesus loved or lived, made it really clear that God's love reaches. That God's love knows no boundaries, no limits, and no shortcomings. That God's love reaches. And if God didn't reach for us first, we would never be tugged to reach for God. So that's one of the things we need to come home. The other thing we need to come home is we need to know that what we're doing isn't working. Right? We need to be able to look at our lives and see the places where we're off doing our own thing and see that those need to change. We also need to, like the path of self-discovery. Where in our lives are we just kind of saying to God, we're not going to talk about this area? It's all right. We're good, right? Where in your life is there something like that? Is it gossip? Is it slander? Is it judgment? Whatever. There's, that path of self-discovery where we think we know better than other people and God. And then there's this path of moral conformity. And we need to turn away from that as well, where we see that in our lives, where we see that we're doing these things that we do to be right with God, that we're doing these things to get the blessings, that we're doing these things out of obligation, or we're doing things because we figure if we do it right, God will bless us. That's just as dangerous and difficult as the one who runs away, as the one who stays and focuses on doing it ourselves. So the second thing we need in order to come home is to recognize that there are areas of our lives that aren't working the way that we think they work. And that's been kind of the message with the story of the two sons and the elder brother in particular. So the third thing we need is we need to have our hearts be opened and melted by an awareness of what it cost for us to be brought home. So in this parable, in this day, in the reading in Luke 15 that we encounter Jesus, he is preaching, and we've talked about that. He's teaching or preaching. We don't know if he's in a synagogue. We don't know if he's on a hillside. We don't know if he's in a square. He's there. And there are kind of two groups of people gathered around him, right? There's the younger brother types, the tax collectors and prostitutes and other sinners, people whose behavior was clearly not in line with what God would want. And they were all clustered around him. And then kind of off to the side were the elder brother types, right? The elder brother types who were the Pharisees and the religious leaders of the time. And they were looking at the riffraff, right? Because that would be there. These were the ones, these other ones, the ones clustered around Jesus, were the very ones that if they went amongst them might make them unclean. So they're off to one side with their hands folded across their chests and their lips stitched together, right? That look. And they say to Jesus, or they ask the question, why does he hang out with these sinners, these people, this riffraff? And then Jesus tells 3 stories. Now, so far, we've just been looking at the third story, but he tells 3 stories. The first story is the story of the lost sheep, right? Guy has 100 sheep. 1 sheep wanders off. He counts the sheep. 1's missing. He leaves the sheep. He goes off to find the one, finds it, puts it on his shoulder, brings it back, and then calls all his neighbors to celebrate. The story of the lost sheep. The other story is the story of the lost coin. A woman had 10 coins, right? 10 silver coins. She goes to count them, and one of them is missing. And that's a lot of money for them, right? And it's like, and so what she does is she turns her house upside down. She lights all the lamps, she moves all the furniture, she sweeps in the corners, until she searches and searches and searches until she finds that coin, and then she cries out to her neighbors, "Come and gather with me and celebrate with me, for I lost this coin and it's found." And then he told the third story, and that's the story of the lost son. The interesting thing is that in the first story, the shepherd goes out. Someone, in each of those other two stories, someone goes out to find the one that's lost. But in the story of the prodigal son, no one goes to find him. And we're so used to hearing that story that it doesn't give us a second thought. But when we hear it in conjunction with those other two stories, we begin to wonder. And then you need to know that for the people listening, they would have been saying, who's going to go get that son? Who's going to go after them? Because for them, they knew that the person who should have gone after the younger brother was the elder brother. Because the elder brother was responsible to keep the family together. You see, the treasure in this story is not the land that the father divided up and gave part to his younger son and kept the rest. The treasure is the family. The land was just to secure the family and give them a living and give them a home. But the treasure was the family. And the heart of the father, we see it as he goes out to his sons, right? The heart of the father is with his family. And the elder son was responsible for the entire family and the well-being of the family. A good elder son, in the mind of the people who first heard this, a good elder son would have come to his father and said, "My brother has gone off. He's wasted his money. He's ruined his life, and I'm going to go and find him and bring him home. No matter the effort, no matter the cost, I'm going to do that." And he wouldn't have done it because it was the rules. He wouldn't have done it because it was the obligation. He would have done it because he would know the heart of the father and know that the father's heart longed for his younger son to be home. That's the kind of elder brother we need. As we came to the end of that story last week and there was no resolution, that was the kind of discomfort we were feeling, that there was something missing from the story. And what's missing is the elder brother. We needed an elder brother. We need an elder brother who wouldn't just go to the next town to find us or the next country to find us, but that would leap out of heaven the same way that Bob Goff leapt out of that plane after his son, who would leap out of heaven to come to us. We needed an elder brother who would not count the cost for 1 minute of what it might cost for us to be brought home. He would just pay it because he knew that the Father's heart longed for us to be home. Jesus is our true elder brother. That's why he left that ending just hanging there. Jesus is the true elder brother. Jesus is the one who loved God with all his heart, mind, and soul. Jesus is the one who leapt out of heaven and left everything to come and be born as a baby and live and grow and walk with us and teach us and love us. Jesus is the one to whom belonged everything that was the Father's. Everything. And he left it to come to be with us. Jesus, Jesus, if he were a good elder son in that story, he had the robe, and he had the ring, and he had it all. And what did he get? Did he get a royal robe? No. He got a cross. Did he get a ring? No. He got a crown of thorns. Did he get a celebration? No. He got death on a cross. Because for him there was no cost too high for us to be brought home. Jesus is our elder brother. Jesus is the one who we longed for at the end of that story. The younger brother in the story got a Pharisee for his eldest brother. We got the true elder brother. So this sermon series, and I don't know if it's because I've been listening to it as well as writing it or what, but this sermon series has really stirred me up. And I think the thing that has challenged me is the whole image of the elder brother, and that idea that some of us as Christians do what we do because we think God will bless us. And I've had to look at my life and say, why do I do what I do? Do I do it because it's the rules? Do I do it because I want to be good? Do I do it because I think I'm earning something? Why do I do what I do? And that's uncomfortable, right? That's uncomfortable. And I don't want to be like that. So what happens is I immediately start thinking of what I need to do differently, and I start writing lists in my head. True elder brother thinking. Like, that's the human way. If there's a problem, I'm going to think about it, figure it out, and then it'll be solved. Right? That's not the answer. That's not the answer. When we hear the story of the true elder brother, the answer is, I'll do it. The answer is not, I'll do it. The answer is not, I'll pull myself up by my bootstraps. The answer is not, I'll just be good. The answer is not, I'll just behave myself. The answer is not, I'll just hold on a little bit longer. The answer is a prayer. The answer is, help me. The answer is, show me. The answer is, lead me. The answer is, walk with me. The answer is, let me know what you would have me be. The answer is, I want to know you, Lord. Teach me. And the answer is to cry that, believing that there is a response. To cry out to the one who wants nothing more than to have us turn and come home. The one who sees us in the places in our life where we're lost and a little bit separated from God or a lot separated from God and longs. The one who leapt out of heaven to find us and bring us home. The answer is to say, help. Help. We have a true elder brother. It's not our job to fix and change those things in us that make us uncomfortable. The job's been done. It's our job to ask for help. It's our job to believe help will come. That's all. Just say yes. The true elder brother has already done it. Amen.